Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. This is a very quick video about the brand new released Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo on the PlayStation 5. And in this video I'd like to answer the question, do we have HDR support? And the answer is yes, we have HDR support, but more interesting is actually how good is HDR implemented and what can we expect from HDR in a remake like that. The good news what I have is that the HDR black level floor, which is one of the most important feature in a very good HDR implementation, is already much better than in the games Suicide Squad or Starfield. So that's good news. On the other hand, we have actually not very good looking specular highlights. But again, this is, I would say, complaining on a very high level because the overall presentation actually in regards of HDR and the visual quality is actually pretty good. So let's take a closer look on the HDR in-game settings what we have in this demo version, and all what we have is actually brightness setting and HDR luminance setting. On top, this game does not support the HDR system level calibration on the PlayStation 5. And I know that you're waiting for some recommendations in regards of the best HDR settings for this demo version, but all what I can recommend is to not touch the settings at all, because as soon you increase the brightness setting just by one click, you will have additional HDR black level rays. And this is something what we like to avoid under all circumstances, because this game can look very washed out in certain situations like this here right now. And this unfortunately is done on purpose, because I can show you actually that the game in the very exact room, or whatever you want to call this, cave, can look pretty good. And when we stand in the middle of this room, and it's not a room, it's a cave or something like that, but you can see the picture looks very washed out. But when we walk a little bit further, then suddenly you can see that we have an absolute great, fantastic contrast with, awesome specular highlights. So this right now looks absolutely fantastic. It is actually not to understand why when we walking away from here, why suddenly the picture looks absolutely worse. And that's the reason why you shouldn't touch the brightness setting at all. Just leave it at 0, because this is the best experience what you can have. And now let's talk about the HDR luminance setting, and the standard factory setting is 10. And with this setting, the maximum peak brightness and specular highlights is around 900 nits. And because the maximum peak brightness and specular highlights is with the setting to the maximum value, just 900 nits, I would not recommend to change this setting at all. Even you play this game on an LG CX, leave the setting where it is. The quality of the HDR implementation in this game is on an average level, but this was to expect. I mean, we're talking about a very old game. We're talking about a remake from a very old game. So we can't expect a perfect HDR or a masterpiece in regards of the HDR implementation. Actually, we can be lucky that we have HDR support at all. And I know that some people will say that this is just a demo version and we have to wait for the final version to make a final statement. But to be very honest, usually there is not much of a difference between a demo version and a final version nowadays. That's my experience at least. And this was with most of the games where I tested the demo version and then the final version. I mean, the only difference actually was Tekken 8, where there was no HDR at all in the demo version and just HDR in the final version. But again, I am not expecting a big improvement when we're talking about HDR between demo version and final version.